Hi, this is Eric Smith. Time to do another quick look video, and I thought I would do it from the book of Haggai, chapter 1, verses 3 and 4. And the word of God reads this way. Then the word of the Lord came by Haggai, the prophet, saying, "It is time for you yourselves to dwell in your paneled houses, and this temple to lie in ruins." The prophet is asking a question, and a serious question. In chapter 1 of this book, there is a command from the Lord given to the prophet, to the people, to go back and build God's house, to build God's temple. In fact, in the very first verse, the prophet sent to Zerubbabel, and he's the governor of Judah, and to Joshua, the high priest. So he's speaking to the leadership about what they're supposed to do and what God is telling them to do. That's why in verse 3 it says, "Then the word of the Lord." So we know it comes directly from God. God is speaking directly to the prophet. It says, "The word of the Lord came by Haggai, the prophet." So Haggai is the prophet, the Lord speaking to him, speaking to the prophet, and now he's going to speak to the leadership, and then they're going to convey that message to the people. What is the message? It begins in verse 4. "Is it time for you yourselves to dwell in your paneled houses and this temple to lie in ruins?" This is a question, and it's a serious rhetorical question. The Lord is asking, is it time for you, and that's the leadership and the people in the nation of Israel, yourselves to dwell in your paneled houses? Now, what does God mean by that? What he's saying is they're living in dwelling places that are extravagant. It shows that they're spending their money and their time on housing that would look good, that people would know they put time and money in. In fact, they're living in good housing. It kind of shows their position, their social position, their social status, their financial status. And God is asking through the prophet, is it really time for you to be living in these houses instead of what? Building the temple of God. That's why it says, "And this temple to lie in ruins." God is saying the temple is in ruins. It needs to be built, and nobody wants to build it. Now, there's a lot of reasons why that they weren't motivated to do it, but the bottom line is God told them that's what they need to do. Dear Christian, in these two verses, what we see is that the leadership of Israel and the people of Israel had their priorities wrong. They were inconsistent, and they were practicing hypocrisy. What were their priorities? Themselves. They didn't care about anything but living in the homes they were living in, their own status. That was more important than rebuilding God's temple. And then their inconsistency. So you can take time out to make your house look good, your home look good, but you don't have time to build the temple of God. And then their hypocrisy. What a hypocrite you are. You're going to spend time building a home and hyping yourself up, but you won't take the same time to build the temple because you're living in Israel. This is a theocracy. God is your king, and you should be serving him, but you're serving yourself. This is something that's serious that God did not put up with in the Old Testament, and that's why he spoke through the prophet. Today, as Christians, we have to make sure that we have our priorities straight. Who are we serving? Are we serving ourselves or are we serving God? We have to be consistent. We can't be inconsistent. Yes, we can take care of the 9 to 5 things of life, but we also need to be taking care of the things of God. And then third, we don't want to be hypocrites. We don't want to say we're people of God and we care about church and we care about ministry, and yet all we show is that we care about ourselves. The people of Israel was doing this as it pertains to building the temple, and God had to go to the prophet to let them know, listen, you need to get right. You need to do what I tell you to do and stop thinking about yourself. So this is Haggai, chapter 1, verses 3 and 4. I just wanted to do a quick look to remind you, Christian, even though I'm reading this from the Old Testament, we have to understand that we can have the same misguided priorities. We can be just as inconsistent and we can be just as hypocritical. And we need to be careful about that because we need to be serving the Lord. As always, if the videos on this channel have encouraged your Christian walk and edified you in any way whatsoever, but you have not subscribed to my channel yet and you want to, hit the button. If you want to leave any comments, please do so, but please don't be snarky. Please do not be profane. We want to be Christ-like in everything we say and do as Christians. And until we do another quick look, we can go through the Old Testament prophets, particularly the minor prophets, and we see a lot of judgment from God. Sometimes we don't want to keep reading it because it's like, man, God is just judging them for all the things that they did. But the things that they were doing was sinful. It could have been really grievous sins or just the sin of hypocrisy, of, in this case, kind of laziness, because they had enough energy to take care of their homes, but not enough to rebuild the temple. And you know what? In Old Testament Israel, in that theocracy, there needed to be a temple and they needed to get to business. Today, as Christians, we need to do the same thing. Let's remember that these are written for our example, and we don't need to follow the example of the nation of Israel when they were defying God and disobeying God and doing what they wanted to do. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and God bless.